Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We are in the fantasy trip, the In the Labyrinth book by Steve Jackson Games. Today I'm going to go over how encounter design works in the Labyrinth. If you play D&D, anything from 3rd edition D&D onwards, or Pathfinder, they all have a challenge rating system. This game does not. So you need to take a few things in consideration whenever you're designing your encounters. One that you always need to consider, no matter what the game is, the dice can always go against you. And it can always go for you. So I know a encounter that was considered weak as far as the party was concerned, and nobody rolled higher than 2s the whole fight. So they pretty much just about got killed outright. Then I know another encounter that was supposed to be very challenging, and they criticaled on it like 4 different times and killed it within 1 to 2 turns. So keep that in mind. The key points that I want to go over are one, that the number of creatures you use need to be determined by how powerful the creatures are and how many players you got involved in the combat. And if they have any weird abilities, or if your players have any weird abilities, like good spells. There are nuisance encounters. Nuisance creatures are slimes, rats, vampire bats, spiders and wasps, scuttles, piranhakeets, scorpions, and children. It's hilarious that children are considered a nuisance encounter. But slimes are slow moving. They have like no dex, and they have to move onto you to start doing damage to you. Some of them might not hurt you, and they might hurt your items. So you just need to be aware. Slimes are usually about the size of a small dog, but they could be bigger. Rats, they're usually found in groups of 50 to 100. And if they think they can take you, they will attempt to attack and eat you. But the rats only have 1 hit point and dex of 10. And if a rat bites you, you take 1. But if you are swarmed by rats, for every rat that is considered to have hit you, your armor only reduces the first point from each rat. So if your armor was 4 and 8 rats hit you, you only subtract 4 damage that turn, and you take 4. Bats are the flying version of rats. They're usually found in groups of 25. And then spiders and wasps. And the way that I would handle the swarms is I'd pretty much go, if you can do enough either area damage or you can present something that would scare them off, that would work. Other than that, you would then go to, let's say, the party wants to fight a bunch of goblins. Let's look up goblins' base stats again. Goblins. Goblins have a strength of 6, a dex of 8, and IQ of 10, and 8 extra points to be added to any of these. So I would increase the goblin's IQ and dex, and strength. I'd raise the strength to 8, so 2, so the strength would be 8. And even if I didn't raise the strength, so strength is 6. Assume I don't add the extra 8 points other than boosting dex to 10 to give me a 50-50 chance to actually hit something with the monster. And I don't necessarily need to do that. I could leave it at 8. The party would be fighting these goblins, and with a strength of 6 means most party members, on the weapons they should be wielding at 1st level, should do a d6 to a d6 plus 2 to maybe even 2d6 if they had enough money to purchase a bigger weapon. So they could probably take out a goblin in one hit, assuming they roll their dex to hit. So if I used goblins, I'd probably use them about equal to the number of players in a single encounter. Now I could do double that, but not have them all there at the beginning of the encounter. Say they're in the adjacent room. The encounter begins, the players start fighting these goblins and start killing them, and then another small group of maybe just as many goblins come rushing in. Next, let's look up, say, an ogre. Well, better yet, let's look up like a hobgoblin or an orc. Well, orc's going to be the same as a human, so it doesn't have a general stat for them because they're the same as humans. I just want stats to reference real quick, not to make up myself. You can also put all these creatures onto index cards, and then you'd have them at hand during any game, especially if you haven't planned enough of what's going on, or your party makes a left turn somewhere. Okay, ogres. Ogres won't have an IQ higher than 6. They're the same as giants, so let's turn back to giants. Excuse me. Okay, so giants have a movement of 10, a strength of 25 to 40, dex of 9 or 10, IQ of 7. With a giant, I'd give him a range of strength, 25 to 40, so I'd probably roll 2 or 3 6-sided dice and add that to 25, unless I wanted him to be weaker. I'd leave his dex at 9 as an ogre, and his IQ would be 6 as an ogre. So he wouldn't have any weapon talent, so he'd be wielding a club, which would do a lot of damage based on his strength. So I'd have to look that up in the hand-to-hand table. But him being a single target, if he misses, each party member is going to get a chance to hit it every turn, and he only gets to attack once. His attack might kill somebody, so you got to be aware of that. But if the party's outnumbering him greatly, that gives them the advantage as far as the encounter design goes. If you wanted to make it harder after they get used to fighting these things, put 2 of them there instead of 1. But I wouldn't increase their dex just to give the party a good chance, because if you do hit them, and the lower you roll under your dex, the higher your chance of a critical is, because a critical is a 5 through 3. So that could also really, really mess with the players. So keep that in mind. So to recap, we'll go with, you have your nuisance encounters, which could outnumber the party, we'll say 2 to 1, 3 to 1. You could also use the optional rules from 4th edition D&D, where you have the minions, and you could treat the goblins like minions, and they'd have 1 hit point. But they'd have, all the rest of their stats would be pretty good. They could use the weapons that their strength's supposed to let them use. They could have their dex and IQ and fight. From there, you could go to regular goblins being, I'd use them 1-to-1 to the party. If I was using, say, orcs, which would have stats similar to the players, I'd let the players outnumber the orcs at least by 1 or 2 characters. Depends on how big your party is. And then I'd only use 1 giant at a time, unless the party was very proficient in dispatching giants. And that's how I'd break down my encounters. Let me know if this was helpful to you guys. Put it in the comments below. Until we all game again.